welcome to the Smasher and Ceiling podcast. I am so pleased that you're here because today, right in front of me, is my lovely friend and book editor, Kris Emery. Now, Kris is a non-fiction editor and is an author now, right? You have got your very first book that has hit the shelves, and you can go and buy it now. We're going to talk about a little bit more about that in a second. But I am so excited that you're here, Kris, because we're going to be delving deep into what it's like writing a book, what it's like just being on that journey, what it's been like for you being on the other side of the fence this time, and all the bits and pieces in between. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's been a very big journey. I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, right. So I'm so excited to be having this conversation with you because I was on this journey. I'm trying to remember, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I think it was 6 years ago now. With you as well, when I was on my writing my book. I was going to say my first book, but
yeah, that's a good mindset to get into. I like it.
Okay, I'm just going to say my first book, and you were an instrumental part of that journey. So I can't wait to just delve into what it's been like for you being on the other end of this journey, but also what it's like in reality for people that are writing their books. So yeah, I am so excited to have you here. So let's dive in. First of all, I want to say a massive congratulations on your book. Bestseller, right?
So Amazon has categories, and I did come top in a few categories in the UK and Australia. Yes, I messed around with the categories a little bit too much to top some categories in certain markets. But yeah, I'm very pleased with how it's done so far.
Yeah, congratulations. And the book is called
Destination Author.
Destination Author. So all the links to Kris and your book will be in the show notes. So go, and if you're on this journey and you're ready to write your book, go and buy a copy. So we'll get that out straight off the bat. But I'd like to just delve into what it's been like for you, because I remember my journey was nerve-wracking from beginning to end, and I'm sure you've experienced this with so many of your clients, because you're a non-fiction editor, so all of your clients are writing their books, and I'm sure you've seen it all the time with them. How has it been for you?
So I'm very lucky because I've taken so many people through the process. So the kinds of clients I work with are usually business, health, wellness, anyone who's writing about lifestyle and that kind of thing. So very much entrepreneurs, speakers, or solo business owners. And that's me. And so I'm very lucky to have had not just one practice book of my own, which I wrote in 2012, a very long time ago, and I've now hidden and tucked away, and we never talk about it again. And I had that experience of my own book, and then I had I've had 10 years since then of editing generally, and 7 specifically with non-fiction books. So I feel like I've seen all the places where the process can unravel, all the places where people can fall off. And so my experience was actually very grounded, and I'm connected obviously to lots and lots of people who can help me make it happen. So it was also very supported. So my experience probably isn't typical, because as self-publishers go, at least first-time authors go, I'm still calling myself a first-time author, we're not talking about the one that I wrote. As first-time authors go, I actually do have quite a lot of the behind-the-scenes knowledge, but that is really not typical. So I really enjoyed my journey. I really enjoyed writing it. That's not to say there weren't sticky moments, but I have really gotten to know my own process and what works for me and what makes me feel creative. And another blessing in disguise was I had a couple of months last year where business was a bit slow. So I also had the space to go and write it in some nice, big, juicy chunks of time. So that was really awesome, especially because of the way that I like to work. I get quite intensely focused when I'm in creation mode. So I enjoyed it, but I still came unstuck in the very typical places that lots of people do. It took me longer to do a lot of things than I expected it to take. And I didn't give myself enough time to research my keywords and, all of the things that I give people a heads up about in Destination Author itself, which is a guide to the adventure of writing your nonfiction book. All of those things that I have told people about, they were still confronting for me. So I didn't do it perfectly, but I was very well supported. So yeah.
Amazing. Now, I just want to say, I love the fact that you call writing your book an adventure, because I know for me, it really was an adventure. And I always ever since I was little, I knew that I wanted to write books. And again, I'm using plural, right? So I wanted to write books. I wanted to be an author. Everything was, it was just all about, it was a done deal in my head. It was never not going to happen. And I think a lot of people think like that, but just never get round to it. What do you reckon? I do firmly believe that everybody's got a book in them.
Me too. Yeah.
It's just about giving yourself permission to do it.
Yeah. So I'm not somebody who's had a lifelong desire to write a book, but I know a lot of people are. I've definitely held the desire for a very long time. In childhood, English was not my favorite subject, and I really liked foreign languages. And I was also told at a really young age, and this is a really interesting mindset thing, because I can pinpoint this moment as where I began feeling like I wasn't a creative person. So a teacher once said to me, I'm not very imaginative, but that when I write, I would write good discursive stuff. Now, telling a 9-year-old to write discursive stuff, I can't even remember what that word means right now, let alone as a 9-year-old. It's basically like nonfiction, essentially, like anything with some kind of discussion in it or based in reality. And I suppose in a way it was trying to steer me towards my strengths, but it really just boxed me in and made me feel like, I'm not a good writer. So I don't think writing books really occurred to me that much as a child, because I had that belief quite young. I came to editing actually via like a really roundabout route, which was to go and do foreign languages and then translation and then editing. And I eventually got interested in editing books, but I didn't even start editing books. I started editing in corporate. So I hadn't had that long held desire to write a book, but a lot of my clients definitely have. And you don't even need that long desire, I don't think, to come to that point where you realize that you have a message to share and this is the vehicle that you want to give it to people in. I think a book is a really lovely milestone that can wrap up a chapter in a way that like lots of other things can't. Like we talk about courses being useful for people and wanting to get information out in lots of different formats, but there's something about a book that's really special. And I can't remember your question, but I think I've answered it.
I can't remember it either.
Essentially, like I don't feel like you have to be someone with a lifelong dream to do it, to want to do it. And yes, I definitely agree that everyone has a book in them, potentially several books. Like I think I can feel your second one coming through just because of the languaging that's just naturally tumbling out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And I think you can't force a book, but likewise, when it's ready, you can't stop it.
Yeah, it just happens, doesn't it? And you kind of know when it's the right time. It kind of it knocks on the door for a while, doesn't it? I know, certainly with my book, it was the book that I created wasn't the book that I sat down to write. It took a different turn. It evolved. It was as I was creating it.
Yeah.
But it kind of just, it did kind of like pat me on the shoulder, you know, constantly for a while, saying, do you know, do you think you should write this? Do you think you should write this? Until one day I thought, no, today I'm going to just sit down and get the job done.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest lesson. And I'd be interested to know what your take on this is. It's just allowing yourself that space to just sit down and do the work. Yeah, the book's not going to come out of nowhere. You need to sit down and do the work.
Yeah, so something that I say in Destination Author actually is that we romanticize this idea of being an author. And people feel like they're doing it wrong because they feel like it should feel more profound when they're sitting down and writing. And actually, it's just a lot of time in the chair typing on your own. And it doesn't feel that sexy, and it doesn't feel that profound, and it doesn't feel that interesting sometimes. And I wanted to normalize some of the ways you might experience the adventure, because I start off in the book describing like my very first travel adventure and how, yes, it was epic some days, but it was also like 4 months of my life. You can't be epic up at this level for 4 months solid. And the real learning moments in that 4 months of that trip were the times where challenging things happened and I overcame them, but they weren't worth writing home about because they were maybe mundane things or maybe boring things or maybe just like a moment of your day. And that's what I like in the book journey too. Like there are no accolades for rereading your draft 11 times. You got to do it, but nobody talks about that. The messaging that you see out there online in all of these writing groups and flashy blueprint bestseller programs, whatever they are, it's all writing a book is easy. Writing a book is free. You can just put it on Amazon. You can sit and write your book in a weekend. But we don't have to rush it. And actually, if you take the time to go on the journey, the adventure, the real good stuff that's in there is sometimes the harder stuff or sometimes the challenging stuff that you manage to overcome. And it's so much richer if you allow that experience to be a full experience rather than just trying to smash a book out so that you can get it on Amazon by the end of next month, you know. And I'm trying to move away from that messaging of hustle and pushing and force yourself and that kind of thing, because that message is definitely already out there. There's no more, it doesn't need any more advocates on that train. You know, mixing my metaphors there. But I'm trying to show people that just because it's not a walk in the park doesn't mean that it isn't incredibly worth it if you embrace that journey. And I think it makes it all the more special that you're writing a book, because it's not something that is a piece of cake or just that anybody can do. I mean, I believe everybody can write a book, but not everybody will.
That's the thing, isn't it? Not everybody will. And I completely agree with you about embracing the journey, because this is your gift to the world, right? This is your gift to the world. So you want to be proud of it and you want to put your whole self into it. And it takes time. And for some people it'll take years, and some people it'll take months, and some people, you know, everything in between. It takes as long as it takes for you. But you're right, there's a lot of just sitting and writing. And for me, there was a lot of giving myself permission to just write anything, and then I'll worry about the edit later, you know.
Absolutely.
Rather than, you know, one of my, as you know, I talk a lot about having imperfect action. And I think for me, it was definitely just giving myself permission to write it and not edit as I go, and let the book evolve, let it just take form. And
Yeah.
it was completely different experience for me because
Yeah.
of that. You know, the book turned into something completely I didn't expect it to.
So I'm really glad that you said that your book informed you what you want it to be, because I say that a lot, like it turned into something else, not what you sat down to write. But that's because your book becomes an entity kind of in its own rights, and it sort of feeds back to you as you go. And I believe in having a bit of a loose plan, so not planning too rigidly that doesn't allow you to flex with what your creativity brings forth when you do actually sit down to it. So that's a really important point. And I also think that a lot of people, they want to have a book. I don't know if this comes across in Destination Author in the way that I want it to, but they want to have a book as in they want to tick it off almost as a thing that they've achieved, but they don't always appreciate how much growth is available to themselves, not just them kind of informing their audience or creating a community around the book, but how much self-growth actually goes on. And yeah, like you say, it's definitely something to embrace rather than skip over, because you'll get more of the goodness out of it. Actually, something that we talked about just before we came on camera was that idea of feeling like you want to hide your book. And I think that doing that deeper work, going on that adventure and really engaging with your book fully, is one way that you can get to the point where you don't feel like you want to hide it away straight away, because you can have more conviction in what it is that your message is once you've had that longer period of time to reflect and to edit and gotten your team together and that kind of thing. I absolutely believe in imperfect action too. So I don't think any book that we write is wasted, or, you know, I don't believe that we should wait until a particular moment when we're ready, because honestly, you'll never be ready for feeling like truly like you embody being an author. But yeah, I also think there's much to be gained by not pumping it out.
Absolutely. It's a journey in itself. So I think embracing the journey is definitely a message here, isn't it? Just if you're wanting to do it, and you should have a go, even if you don't publish. You know, I'm sure you're very similar to me. I've got about 2 books on my laptop that I've written. I've no intention of them ever going anywhere, but the joy of writing them was the journey in itself. So even if you never plan to publish it, have a go, definitely, because it's the stuff that comes out just in terms of personal development is gold, isn't it?
Definitely.
Just gold.
And there's a huge difference between writing for yourself and writing for an audience. And it's there's this saying in the industry, you write the first draft for yourself, and then subsequent drafts, like when you're going through the editing process, those are for the audience. So that first, whether you get as far as publishing or not, that first one is about expression. And then after that, it's about, okay, making this, crafting it into something that is going to be well received, because you can't have one without the other once you decide to publish. But if you're not going to publish, that is still an amazing exercise, because so much growth can happen through writing.
Really can. So let's look into how we actually do this thing. So let's have a look at some tips for people that are just starting out on their book journey, or they're writing their next book and it might have been a while, and they're just trying to give themselves permission to sit down and make it happen. So let's talk about this writing process, because we've already touched upon this a little bit, just the sitting down and getting the job done.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way of doing this, is there? And we've talked about this in the past, and I'm sure you've experienced this with all of your clients, that everybody goes about this differently. What is your take on this?
So the main message of the book that I've written is there is no one way to do it.
Mhm.
I wanted to give the overall pathway because people get really hung up on things that are coming way down the line. Little niggly bits of self-publishing that they blow into massive reasons to not just sit down and get it done. So my take, I suppose, is you can't publish thin air. You can only publish a book you've written. So don't worry about where to get your ISBN. Don't worry about what categories you're going to upload your book in. Don't worry about what the cover design is going to look like, unless it inspires you to have a visual idea of what your book is going to be, and it helps you get it done. So if finding out about the process helps you get it done, put a boundary around that, number one, and find out what that process looks like. And it is actually the structure of Destination Author is the book process overall. But don't worry about a lot of the things that are coming down the road, because your job as the author, and pretty much your only job, or at least your only sole job, the only job you have to do yourself, is to get the ideas out of your head in some coherent enough fashion that you can start editing. Then it's your job to do a bit of self-editing, and then you will have a team around you, and they can help you go through the self-publishing process. It's not something that you do completely alone. And of course, I can kind of hear the thoughts of maybe people who are going to be watching, and it's something that I get a lot is obviously a team costs money, and that's another reason to do this gradually rather than to smash it out, because yes, a good book will require some professionals to come on board, and that is going to require a bit of an investment that can look like lots of different things. There is no this is how much it's going to cost, but that's another reason that I encourage people to slow down, take their time, do a lot of the work themselves so that they can produce the best version of what they can do, and then get those people around them. But yeah, like I say, you can't publish something that you haven't written. So the number one thing is to actually get something down on paper, out of your head, down on paper, however that looks. So it might feel like cheating to voice record and get it transcribed. It's not cheating if it gets the job done. It's not cheating to write a sentence a day for an entire year. It's not cheating to sit down on a weekend and get the bulk of the words onto paper. I've had clients who have done all these different things. And actually, you're one of the examples that I do tend to use, because you were a little and often writer. At least you had a goal to write, I think it was 50 or 100 words a day. And of course, you never just wrote 50 words. But it gives you that little and often goal. Some people cannot work like that. Myself, I need at least half a day to get my head in the zone, and my creative process looks much more like I need a chunk of time to get into it. But everybody, like you said, everybody is different, and there isn't a right way of doing it, because the process has got you in this sense. The process holds you because your editor has a job to do, and then your proofreader has a job to do, and then all of these people that do their part of the process will shape what is basically a document on your computer at the end of the day into something that you can hold in your hands.
I know, and you're absolutely right. There is no right answer. It's just whatever feels good for you.
Provided, as long as it gets done, stop worrying about cheating or it not feeling profound. It's this idea that it doesn't feel big enough to be a book. People have told me, writing my book feels just like when I write a blog post. Is that right? like I'm some gatekeeper of how it's supposed to feel when you're doing it every day. But yeah, it's just a lot. We're coming back to the same very simple thing. It's just a lot of hours in the chair typing or however else.
Yeah, however you choose to do it. But as long as we understand that it really doesn't matter. And I love the fact that you said if it's not cheating to voice record your book and then have it transcribed, that none of it is cheating, right?
I think writer sounds like you have to be very intellectual or something, and you have to write words one at a time on the page. No, a writer can speak words in like there's so many different ways that you can do it. You can write short pieces and then you can edit them into a book. There's so many different ways of getting it done, and it really doesn't matter, because the product that you create at the end, you don't have, it's not like do you remember those exams where you had to show you're working out? So you couldn't just write the answer, you had to show you're working out. Books aren't like that. You don't have to show you're working out. You don't have to turn over your rough draft and be like, here you go, audience, I did all this behind the scenes so that you can, it's not like that.
Pretty cool that you don't have to do that. I'm really pleased that you don't have to do that, because it'd just be a really, although I'd quite like to see somebody's journey. I think now that
I could geek out on that kind of thing.
Out on that too. I could geek out. I'm like, maybe that should be a thing.
I definitely don't think it should be a requirement, because I see a lot of first drafts, and believe me, they should not get onto their shelves. And that is no disrespect to any of my clients. My own first draft was exactly the same. And it's because when you're in the throes of creativity, like you're pouring out, but like editing by design is paring back, so that we end up with something.
Job. Basically, that's somebody else's job. Your job is to write the thing. And I just want to go back to when you said we have this view, this perception of what a writer should be. And as soon as you said that, it was so strange that immediately in my head, I was like, an old-fashioned typewriter, some kind of Agatha Christie, person tapping away, or sitting in a coffee shop with a nice posh leather-bound journal and a fountain pen. And we have these notions of what a writer should be like and how we can fit into that box. But actually, as you said, it's whatever you want it to be. You can write and massive big reams in a weekend. You can write one sentence a day. You can do it on your voice recorder. You could even put a collection of blog posts together. There's no right or wrong way for just sharing your message. And that's the important bit here. It's just about giving yourself permission, allow the experience of sharing your message. So what are some of the pitfalls that people fall into once they've done the hard work? I'm not even going to say it's hard work, but once they've done the work, it's as hard or as easy or as enjoyable, whatever the experience is going to be like for you. Once they've done the work, they've got the book. What are the pitfalls that people fall into at that point? Because for me, I'll just put this in some kind of context. The writing was the fun bit. The hard bit was the sharing of it.
Yeah.
But again, what do you feel as though people experience?
So I think the pitfalls usually start earlier than the production. There are a lot of pitfalls of the self-publishing thing. Like I've covered a few things kind of in passing, but not giving yourself enough time, thinking that once you get it back from the editor that you can publish it next week. Like timeline is a huge thing that just people have no idea of what's realistic. And especially online entrepreneurs, they're very used to having a product that they can put on their own website, which they have full control over. They're creating their own content, which they have full control over, and they design their launch, which they have full control over. And they might get people on their team to do it, but you can't really hurry the process of a book in the same way, because it's sort of sequential. So you need to get one person to look at it, then you need to get another person to look at it. Then once it's at that point, you have to have the pages typeset or designed. You can do some things simultaneously, but there is some kind of process that you need to follow. And I think so one of the pitfalls that lots of people fall into is they set a launch date way too early, and then they don't realize all these hundreds of little things and how long they're all going to take. Like I said, I did it myself. I didn't give myself long enough to research my keywords. And when it came to putting them in the back end of the KDP site, because I published on Amazon, and KDP is how you do that, I put the keywords in and I was just like, oh, those ones that I normally use on my website, those will do. And I could have done that a lot more in depth and a lot more thoroughly. So yeah, the amount of time I would definitely say is a pitfall. The ones that I was just referring to that start a bit earlier is not thinking through the messaging and the audience properly at the beginning, because a lot of people start by writing and they don't plan. And so the book gets to the editing point and it's really hard to reverse engineer the important things like structure, emotion, and all of these other things that make the book engaging and make the book readable. So it's not too late to do it by the time it gets to the editor, but it's a lot more costly if you haven't thought through some things. So the pitfall there, I guess, is by not doing some of the groundwork, you're making it harder for yourself and for your team to get momentum and really create something that's the best it can be. If you're sending something to your editor that needs a lot of really obvious work that you could have actually done yourself in just an extra read through, reading it out loud, for example, or doing what's called a reverse outline, which is when you look at your book paragraph by paragraph and you write sort of the gist of what you've said there, so that you end up with a sort of skeleton and you can see, you know, what order you've put things in, what actually happened when you wrote. If you don't do some of those things yourself, you can end up not wasting your editor's time, because your editor will do it, but you don't really get the juice out of that experience. You can rely on your editor for so much more than just fixing the grammar. So lean on the person that you choose to do that. And then there are some kind of smaller common things that people do, but it usually comes down to not knowing the process, not doing the groundwork, or not having a realistic idea of what kind of the timeline looks like, all of which I address in Destination Author, so that it's very easy to navigate this without giving you like answers that are just a stock standard answer. I help you figure out how to figure it out for yourself, because like you were just saying, everyone is different. So I didn't want my book to be like a blueprint of how to do it, because that's just not the reality. So yeah, those are a few places that people can go off the path a little bit.
So we've mentioned your book quite a few times now. So let's talk about your book. When it's obviously out, it's available on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
It's called Destination Author. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say I am going to distribute it in other ways, but at the moment it's just out on Amazon. So that is a learning curve for me, the publishing part. I went with the obvious one, but yeah, Destination Author is like going to be everywhere soon. But it's not in bookstores yet, only virtual ones.
Right, fantastic. So, but for now you can go and find it on Amazon, and it is definitely for you if you are thinking about writing a book, if you know that writing a book is on your bucket list, or it would benefit your business. And that's the thing that we kind of really have to touch on. it doesn't have to be, as you've said at the beginning of our conversation today, something that you've always wanted to do. It's a great calling card for your business, isn't it? It's a great way to share your message. It's a great way to touch different people in terms of your audience. It's a great way to give a different a different way of people working with you, a different cost band. It's a great gift to give to people. There's a lot of ways that you can actually use a book. And I think in terms of just being part of your brand as well.
There's so many benefits around like credibility and having a product that's kind of that lower cost product. But the one thing, I actually think business books are kind of the easier ones to write in the grand scheme of things. I think I've been focusing a lot on pitfalls and challenges and all the difficulties, but actually the people who are writing a book for their business can find it relatively easy because they've usually done a lot of the groundwork in some way, shape or form. So we know who we're talking to because it's the kind of person that we sell to in our business. So we already have an idea of who that audience is. We already know what problem we're solving. And people usually already know, like, and trust us. So we've developed a bit of a voice and a bit of a presence. So quite often the books for your business are slightly, I'm not going to say easier really, but you're less entangled with a lot of the stuff that you're writing. I think memoirists really have their work cut out when they're writing their own journey, because that can be a very emotional time trying to write bare your soul. It was what you were saying before about, actually sharing it was the real challenging part. And I completely agree. Being more visible it brings up so much stuff. In fact, when I was thinking about 3 months before I released my book, I was just thinking about, I know that visibility is going to be a challenge for me. So I joined your challenge, your visibility challenge that you run each year. And it really helped me exercise that muscle. And I honestly do not think I would have had anywhere near the success that I've had with my book if it hadn't been for the fact that you'd helped me open up, practice getting out of my comfort zone and sharing. And really, because when we're on social media, we think that we've shared our stuff to death, and like actually only 3 people have really seen it, So it really helped me remember that and embody that and show up over and over and over again consistently. So that was amazing. Thank you. So yeah, the book that we've been referring to the whole time, really the reason I've been referring to it is because I put everything that my clients asked me into one place. So that's another benefit of doing a book for your business, not just a calling card, but answering all those questions just one time because you wrote it down rather than answering them 20 times a week. And but obviously packaging that up in a really helpful way to get people, basically helping people access what you've got when they're not ready to work with you, either one-on-one or in a program or something like that. So yeah, I love a book for that reason.
Oh, me too. And I've lost count of the amount of books that I've read over the years, thousands probably, where I've found the book, read the book, and then started following that person on social. It was the beginning of my journey with that person. So it's such a lovely, it's just an alternative way of reaching more people, isn't it? So yeah, definitely recommend doing it even if you've just got a whisper saying, do this, have a go. So I'm going to finish up now, Kris. I'm just looking at the time thinking, geez, we could literally talk forever, couldn't we?
We did say last time we spoke that we'd have to have a good old chat about just books that we like.
Yes, we did. So I'm going to just round things off now. But I do want to ask you, where can people follow you? How can they get in touch?
So I am on Facebook, Instagram at Kris Emery Editorial. That's Kris with a K. And my website is krisemery.com, and destinationauthor.com.au is where you can get all of the Amazon links in one place. So there's a bit about the book on there, or you can just go straight to Amazon and type in Destination Author, and if I've done my keywords right, I should come up.
Over there, ta-da! But if not, all on the show notes underneath this podcast, wherever you are listening to this, will be links, all the links to find Kris, all the links to go and follow her on social, and to go and grab your copy of the book. Kris, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you today. I love hanging out with you, as always, and I'm just so excited to have been a small part of this journey for you. And yeah, go and hang out with Kris, because your socials is so good right now as well. I was seeing all this.
Yeah, well, you've really got me hitting my stride, Barbara. Seriously, I'm really enjoying it. I backed off the reels because they're so time consuming, frankly. But yeah, I've really enjoyed sharing Destination Author, and one of the reasons that I've loved sharing it so much is because I really went there and I got all the people on board to help me, and I got a design that I really loved. So it's like, the book is so beautiful. I've actually got a copy here.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you got a copy? Because I've just got PDF.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be backwards to people, but when you type it into Amazon, this is what you're looking for, and I just love it. I like it feels very me. I love the colors, I love the feel of it. So it's actually been quite easy to just lean on that branding and put it out there. And I really believe in the book. So yeah, the visibility has the visibility, fluttery, anxious kind of has kind of subsided, partly because I practiced with you, and partly because I know I really believe in the product. So it's actually felt really easy and just joyful to do.
Oh, amazing. It's been a pleasure. I love seeing it all pop up, on my social. I'm like, yay, look at Kris go. She's doing awesome. Happy dance all round, right? So Kris, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Go and follow her online, go buy the copy of your book, and I'll speak to you soon. See you later. Thank you.
Thank you.